Hi everybody and welcome to Permaculture Malaga. I'm sorry for the big delay since the last episode. I know I promised you to put out new episodes rapidly, and I haven't done that. I had some camera troubles, and that gave me a really good reason to procrastinate. And well, that's no excuse for not putting out a new episode. So let's get right to it. This is episode number 10, I believe, and we're going to talk about wind.
I've pulled up the old data I had and showed you in another video, which I got from Tujempo, all the climate data for my area. And as you can see here in this column, we have the wind speed. Now, what we're looking at here are historic averages, year-by-year averages. And we have the average wind speed over the year, and we can see it looks like it doesn't change very much, but let's have a look at the graph for that. Just here, just make that a bit bigger for you, maybe even bigger. There you go. So here we have the annual average wind speed, and it's meters per second. I think Tujempo gives it to you in kilometers an hour, and I prefer meters per second. I've always used meters per second all my life for wind speeds, and I mean there are so many different scales you can measure wind speed on. I do meters per second, so I had to convert kilometers an hour to meters per second. But that's not really important because the graph will give you, the same variation. And what we're looking for here is if there is a pattern in the year-by-year average wind speed. And as you can see, the trend line is almost straight at around 3.5 meters per second. We have a spike here in 1984, but besides that, it's fairly straight. It's hovering around the 3.5 meters per second. So I think it's fair to say that we can conclude that the year-to-year wind doesn't change. We don't have any patterns in the wind changing from year to year. It's the same year by year. But it's just as interesting to see how does the wind change over the year. You might live in an area which has windy seasons and not so windy seasons. Just like living here in the subtropics, you have a dry season and a rainy season. The same things might be true for wind. You might live in a hurricane area, which you have a hurricane season, and so on and so forth. So let's look at the data for the day-by-day basis. So as you remember, I made this 5-year average graph where I've taken every day of the year and taken the average for all the measurements for that particular day of the year. This is the last 5 years. And also here we have wind speed, and we have the maximum wind speed, and we have wind gusts. Now, putting all that into a graph, we'll get this one. I'll just make it bigger for you. There we go. Right. So what you're looking at here is the blue line is the average wind speed, day-by-day basis. The red line is the maximum wind speed averaged over the last 5 years on a day-by-day basis, and the green dots are the wind gust averaged on a day-by-day basis over the last 5 years. So looking at the blue line, you can see that it really doesn't change much over the year. Remember, this graph starts at November 1st. So in this period here, from November 1st to, I would say, April, it's a bit more jagged and slightly higher. It's probably around 4.5, 4 maybe on average. And in the rest of the year, in the summer and autumn, it's down here around 3 on average and not so jagged. And you can see that the maximum wind speed follows that quite nicely. So we would say, okay, we have slightly higher winds in winter and spring, and slightly lower wind speeds in the summer and autumn, but the difference isn't really that big. Now, looking at the green dots, it can be really hard to make any kind of sense of them. So what I've put in here is this orange line, which is the moving average of the wind gusts. And that starts to give you a pattern. What you see here again is from November to around May. You'll see that the wind gusts increase. They're very high. They're about, I would say, 12 meters a second on average. And then in the other part of the year, the summer and autumn, you will see that the wind gusts are fairly low. They're around, I would say, 8 meters a second. So, while we can say that the average wind speed doesn't vary very much over the year, we get a lot of wind gusts in the winter and spring, and not so high wind gusts in the summer and autumn. So there is a pattern here. The wind gusts are here and not here. So there is a pattern. Now your data might look completely different if you're living in a different part of the world, and you might have a lot of wind in the autumn or over the summer or whatever, but you can look for a pattern in the wind and see if you can find one. Now, what this data from Tu Tiempo doesn't give us is the wind direction. We can't say anything about where the wind is coming from, and this information is quite important. What you can do is you can go to a page called windfinder.com. If you're lucky, they'll have your nearest airport or town listed here. And what you want to go to is wind statistics. And here you can actually see month by month the dominant wind direction listed here. And wind probability, now this is also interesting, which ties in very nicely with what we just found. From November to about May, we have increased wind gusts and higher average wind speeds. So this is actually confirming our data. It's nice to have data from several sources to compare. But what is more interesting is this thing, wind direction distribution. Now, I'll just tell you how to read this graph. You have to imagine you're in the center here where it says 0. And this is the compass, north, south, east, west. And the arrows here are showing a probability. You have a probability scale going from 0%, in this case up to 20%, of a wind coming from a certain direction. And you can see there are two prevalent directions here, southeast and west-northwest. These are the prevailing wind directions, and there's not much wind coming from going this way or that way. So the wind is more likely to come from here, southeast blowing in or from the west-northwest and blowing in towards you. That's how you read this graph. Now, the distribution out here just gives you the percentage. Now, adding all of these up should be 100%, because then you have 100% wind distribution. Now, the nice thing is you can actually move this from month to month. So let's take January. That looks completely different. So in January, you have almost a 32% chance of the wind coming from west-northwest, and almost 25% chance of the wind coming from northwest. So there's a 75% chance of the wind coming from this sort of direction in January. And as we move forward throughout the year, you can see something happening. The wind has now moved. Now we're in August, and now you can see that you have a 30% chance of the wind coming from the southeast. September, November, December. So the wind has a pattern here. In the winter, it primarily comes from the west, northwest, or the northwesterly directions, and in the summer, it primarily comes from the south, southeast direction. Now, what you can do is you can grab this image for, say, July to give you your summer directions, and say February to give you your winter directions, and you might want to grab the whole year round. Your distribution might be different. Now, your distribution might be like autumn-spring instead of summer-winter, but anyways, if you click through these months, you'll see a pattern in the wind. And this we can then put on top of our analysis, and this will help us very much. So let's go and do that. So here we are back in our sector analysis. Wind falls under the sector analysis. It's an external factor. So when you made the cutouts from the web page, let's go, there you go. You can superimpose that on your image here. Then you can draw around the borders and so on. And what you get, do this, is you then get this. And you can do that for the winter and the summer as well, or spring or autumn or whatever fits your wind pattern. So here you have your wind direction, and again, the center of this is not important. It's just like with the solar angles. You can move this in parallel. The wind directions doesn't change. If I move it in this way, well, the wind is still coming from southeast and northwest. It doesn't change. You can move this on top of the house if you prefer that. But here we have the directions. And I also have my winter directions and my summer directions. Now I have to take some factors into account because this is airport data. We're living on a mountain. The top of the image towards the north is towards the top of the mountain, and the bottom of the image towards the south is towards the bottom of the mountain. So wind behaves differently when you have mountain. So even if you have your general wind direction, you might have different winds on the mountains. Winds will tend to push up the mountain on one side, and the mountain will steer the direction of the wind, and then fall down on the other side, and vice versa. That is, if you're living on the side where the wind is pushing up the mountain, it will the wind will skew a bit according to the directions, the general directions, because it will be funneled in some way up this mountain and will fall down on the other side where you have the wind coming down the mountain. So you have this sort of three-dimensional wind arrow, not only with the direction but also going up and down the mountain. And usually after a mountain range it will have some turbulence going on. You have to take that into account. So in our example here, it's probably more likely that the summer winds will be more like, let's say, can I put some drawing on this? Summer winds will probably be more like, right, that's really working out. Summer winds will probably be more like this, and the wind like so, and the winter winds will probably be more like so, coming down the mountain, because we have also hilltops on either side. We're actually in a wind tunnel here. So these are more the general directions of the wind, just to give you an idea. And you have the winter wind, which then is coming down the mountain more in that direction, and so on. So you want to adjust for that. Also, you have the daily changes in the wind. We just talked about mountains and how they influence winds, but also if you're living close to the sea, you have, or the ocean, you have the breezes, and these occur in the morning and in the evening. When the land is heated, and when the sun gets up in the morning, the land is heated and the ocean is heated. But the land heats faster than the ocean. So warm air rises quickly from the land, drawing in cold air from the ocean. So in the morning you'll have a breeze. Sorry, I just lost my I just lost my train of thought here. Yes, when the land heats, you will have cold air drawn in from the ocean, rising up over the land, and that will give you a sea breeze coming in. And when it's night, land will cool faster, and the ocean, which has a bigger thermal mass than the land, it can store the heat for a longer time, is not going to cool as fast, so you'll have hot air rising over the ocean, and that will give you a breeze going out to sea. So you have these daily changes also, and we do live close to the ocean, and you have to note that into your sector analysis as well. Now, if you can't find your city or anything local on Windfinder or any other web pages, you can go out into nature and have a look at the trees to see if there's a pattern in the way they're shaped by the wind. Or you can take a look at the global winds. I think I have some here. Yes, global wind patterns here. This is very, very rough and will give you the global wind direction and the general wind direction, but that's on a yearly average. And you might be able to drill down into more detailed winds for your area if you can't find any other sources. But otherwise you have to observe. Stay for a year on your site, observe where the winds are coming from. That's the best you can do. While observing your site, there are also clues. Trees, if strong winds are present, will bend in a certain direction, as you can see here. And that will give you the prevailing wind direction. It will not give you the variance over the year, but it's still a clue, and you can find other clues on your site.
This concludes this episode. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you'll join us again next time.